Hi and welcome. You're probably watching this presentation because you are taking a course that requires that you format your papers according to the style of the Modern Language Association. And the MLA has been a principal professional association in the United States for scholars of language and literature for over 100 years now. Every now and again they release a new style handbook. So the one that we're going to be working with today is the most recent. It's the 7th edition of the MLA Handbook for Writers of Research Papers. So the objectives for today's session. One is to understand really why we might use citation anyway, and in this particular case, why you might use MLA style. We're going to create an MLA exemplar. An exemplar is a model or an example of the first page of an MLA paper. We're going to look at the Intext Citations and the Works Cited page entries for some of the most commonly used sources in your course. And we're also going to touch on what further information and support you might be able to access around campus that can help you with any queries you may have about MLA style usage. Okay, so why is citation style important? This is a quotation that actually comes from the MLA handbook itself. And it's really touching on the idea that you're part of this community, this wider community of writers and scholars. And because this is a community made up of a whole bunch of individuals, this is kind of like one guiding principle. MLA style is a consensus that each of these individuals have come to together about ways that they may document their research and ways that they might format their papers and show their citations. So really it's just all about consistency. The idea behind it is that a scholar constructing a paper in the fields of language and literature, their paper is readily comprehensible to another scholar who's in the same field or a similar field. Really a shared system of citation. So MLA style is really made up of the general format of the paper, which we'll look at in a little bit, the Intext Citations, otherwise known as parenthetical citations, small pieces of information placed in parenthesis in the actual body of your text. And then there's also the complementary fuller entries that are in your Works Cited page that comes at the end of your paper and is organized alphabetically. Okay, so activity 1 is an MLA exemplar. And we went over this during the course itself, during the class itself. This is where we're kind of looking at the different components that go into making a first page of an MLA paper, and hopefully created a file that you're able to save on your computers and you can access anytime you're going to write an MLA paper, just adjusting the details within that exemplar. So just to revisit the most important aspects of the exemplar, up in the top right hand corner you've got your page number and your surname. So you'd insert your page number first and you preface that with your surname. And if you do that through the insert page numbers feature in Word, you're going to get a sequential ordering of page numbers throughout your paper. So in this case it would say Archibald 1 on the first page, second page would say Archibald 2, third page Archibald 3, and so on. And that's in the header of your first page. On the left hand side of the page at the top there you've got your kind of information block. That contains your own name, the name of your professor or instructor, your course code, and the date. Next line down is your title in title case. Go to the next line down, hit tab for a new paragraph, and that's where you'd start writing your introduction. Any subsequent new paragraph thereafter, you just hit enter to go into the next line, and then you'd hit tab to indent it. Everything in your paper is double spaced. You're also, if you see it looking particularly sort of rangy and stretched out, there's a chance that Word is automatically inserting additional spaces after each paragraph. So in that case, you'd go up to your spacing icon here, open that menu, and you'll find an option that will allow you to remove spaces after paragraphs. And finally, font is Times New Roman and font size is 12. So in-text and parenthetical citations. Again, these follow a fairly straightforward format. In MLA, it's generally an author page reference for the most part. So it could be, Archibald 13, Smith 26, Jones 53, something along those lines. And as this points out, if there is no author, a shortened version of the title can be used instead. Again, that's one of the good advantages of MLA. It is flexible. Really, your references in the text, so your in-text or your parenthetical citations, what you want them to do is provide enough information that your reader is able to look at your Works Cited page and clearly identify the complementary longer version of the citation. So if it's clear that, if Jones 26 clearly connects to a fuller citation on the Works Cited page, that's sufficient. So here we're kind of building on the exemplar of the title page, or the first page that we already created, and looking at some specific examples of in-text citations. So in this case, we've kind of got an example first sentence really that reads, in the foreword to the MLA handbook, Rosemary Field notes that MLA style represents a consensus in the fields of languages and literature on the conventions for documenting research. So this quote's introduced with a short phrase and given a context. In the foreword to the MLA handbook, we say, Rosemary Field, the author, notes that. So we've named the author. We've also shortened the quote. You can see this from the ellipses that appear after the word consensus. This indicates that the original quotation contained more material than that which we've included here. But for the interest of space, perhaps, or better emphasizing why we're using a particular quotation, we've chosen to remove some additional language in the middle of the sentence. And then finally, there's the page number there in Roman numerals, 13. So in this case, because we've actually named the author in the sentence, our in-text citation only needs to refer to the page number. It's clear who the author here is. Your reader, when they refer to your Works Cited page, is going to be looking for the name Field. They're going to be going down your alphabetical list of Works Cited entries, and they're going to be looking for Field Rosemary. This particular page number is in Roman numerals because it's in the foreword to the MLA handbook. It's numbered in Roman numerals as opposed to Arabic numerals in the book, and so that's how we've showed it here in the in-text citation. Okay, so second example sentence. Additionally, as noted by scholar Isabel Peterson, MLA formatting is one of the more straightforward citation systems available. 67. So, here this sentence starts with a transitional word, additionally. This is going to help connect the sentence to the one that it follows. Again, in this case, as with the previous case, we're naming the author in the sentence. Isabel Peterson. But unlike the previous example, I haven't used a direct quotation. Instead, I've chosen to paraphrase Dr. Peterson's original language and put what she said in my own words. But because this idea still belongs to Dr. Peterson, not to me, I'm still going to make sure that my reader knows where to find the original wording, if they wanted to, by including the page number, the original source, at the end of the sentence. Again, if my reader wants to refer to this, the full entry in my Works Cited page, they would be looking down the alphabetical list until they get to Peterson. Third example sentence. In fact, when students have a perfect MLA exemplar saved on their computers, there's no excuse for ever submitting a paper that does not follow these rules. Peterson, 202. Again, here we've paraphrased the original author's words, and that's evident from the fact that there's no quotation marks that would otherwise indicate a word-for-word exact quotation. What's different in this example compared to the two previous example sentences is, unlike the sentence where we say Rosemary Field notes, or as noted by scholar Isabel Peterson, in this case we don't actually mention who the original author is in the sentence itself. So if you imagine if I had just taken out that Intext Citation, Peterson 202, the sentence would just read, in fact, when students have a perfect MLA exemplar saved on their computers, there's no excuse for ever submitting a paper that does not follow these rules. But there's nothing in that sentence to indicate that it isn't my idea. It is in fact the idea of somebody else that I've taken and I've paraphrased. So in a case like this where you don't happen to mention the author's name, or perhaps a shortened version of the original source if there's no author, if you haven't mentioned that in the sentence itself, you want to make sure it's in your in-text citation, your parenthetical citation there. So here you can see Peterson 202. Peterson indicating the author, 202 indicating the page number. Again, you may not always have a page number. If that's the case, then you don't have that information to include. But just bear in mind that what you're trying to achieve with these in-text citations is offering your reader enough information that they're able to go to your Works Cited page and find the full entry there with no problem. And from there, they'll have a much easier job of finding the actual original source, should they want to look for it. And then finally, in this case, I just wanted to talk very, very briefly about the fact that MLA papers are often driven by a thesis statement. As a thesis statement is your argument. It's what you want your reader to know, believe, or understand after reading your paper. So here's an example argument here. In this paper, I intend to show that MLA Style is an easy and indispensable documentation tool, both for acknowledging and crediting the original thoughts and ideas of other scholars, and for creating uniformity in the layout and appearance of student writing. It's my argument. That's really my paper in a nutshell. At this stage, you really can't go wrong by putting it here at the end of your introductory paragraph. It's a nice clear place to put it. It's often where your reader will look for your thesis statement. Here it's highlighted in red, but that's for clarity only, just to show exactly where it is. Thesis statement in any paper will be in black font, will be consistent with the rest of your paper. Okay, so we've looked a little bit at in-text citations and how they might be laid out. In cases sometimes where you are quoting, in cases where you're paraphrasing, in cases where you happen to mention the author's name directly in the sentence, and in cases where you don't. So let's look at the complementary part of your paper then. Your full alphabetical list of works cited entries. So again, broadly speaking, A works cited entry is going to include information such as the author's name or the multiple authors' names, the name of the specific piece, the article, perhaps the title of the broader work from which the specific piece is taken, and additional publication information. What it is it a journal, was it taken from the web, when might you have read it, perhaps when it was published, information like that. The aim of this is to give your reader directions, a bit like you could use MapQuest or Google Maps to show directions to a particular location. A works cited entry is like a road map where you might go to find the original source. So it has to contain enough information that in the wealth of information that we have in the world, on the web, in journals, in books, in the form of DVDs or videos, anything like that, audio recordings, newspapers, your reader can not only know exactly what type of source that you're citing, but exactly where to find it. And perhaps more importantly as well, the version that you looked at, because these things do change, particularly on the web. So we've got an example here on the page of a bit of what a works cited page would be formatted, how it would be formatted. And you can see that one of the aspects is the hanging indent, where the second line or second and third line, if it's particularly long works cited entry, are indented. And I gave you some information in the session about a very useful YouTube video that you can use to show you how exactly you insert a hanging indent in Word. Okay, so let's look at one of the ones that you're probably most likely to use. This is the Canadian Journal of Communication. So the Canadian Journal of Communication is a print journal, but it also appears online, and there are quite extensive archives online. So it's probably most likely that you're going to be accessing archived articles from this journal online. So that's the example that we're showing here. So here, in this case, particular layout, you start with the author's name, then you've got the title of the particular journal article, you've got the broader medium where the article comes from, in this case the Canadian Journal of Communication, you've got the volume number, 36, the issue number, 3, the year of publication, which is 2011, and the inclusive page numbers of the article within the journal. Medium, meaning the way that you accessed it, in this case the web, and date of access. So you can see in the image in the lower right hand corner, that's actually what it looked like. That's a screenshot of what this particular journal article looked like. So you can see a lot of the information is contained, in fact all the information that you need is contained there. Okay, YouTube. Now YouTube is actually not covered by the MLA handbook. It isn't something that they actually specifically address. So this is one of the suggestions that's been made. This is one made by the online writing support that's offered by Purdue University. I think it's a good version, and this is another sort of way of kind of looking at the flexibility that the MLA Style or the MLA handbook offers. There's really not sort of any way that any kind of style handbook can encompass every possible permutation, every kind of different type of source that you might access. So if you find a case, and this is one where there really isn't anything within the handbook itself that is an exact match for the type of source that you want to cite, very often you kind of have to just be flexible. You have to innovate. You have to think about what is it nearest to, what might be the closest match, and how I might include enough information in this Works Cited entry that my reader can find the source that I'm referring to. So in this case, what they suggest is that you start with the author's name or the poster's username. You include in quotation marks, the title of the image or video that you've accessed on YouTube. You could include the media type text. In this case, it's an online video clip. The name of the website is YouTube, and then the name of the website's publisher is also YouTube. The date that the actual video was posted, this is 22nd of April 2006 in this particular case. Again, the medium through which you accessed the source, and it was the web. And then the date that you actually accessed it. In this case, the example from Purdue had the 9th of September 2010, but you could just as easily put today's date if that's the date that you actually accessed this video. Okay, so making sense. Again, this is another one of the books that's common in your course. I've got the author's name. In this case, there's two authors. So the way that you structure that is that the primary author, the main author, their surname, comma, first name. Then you've got and then any subsequent authors' names are ordered in the way that we're more familiar with, first name and then second name. The title of the book in this case is Making Sense, A Student's Guide to Research and Writing. It's a 7th edition, so that's a bit of an additional information we'll include there. Place of publication, publisher. So here we've got Don Mills, it's Oxford University Press. OUP is the common abbreviation for that. And the date of the publication, 2012. And in this case, the medium is print. Okay, what about a newspaper article? Again, I've showed, and I've got a screenshot there of a Globe and Mail article from online. Again, I assume this to be probably the most likely way that you're going to be accessing information. And anything like this includes a wealth of information that you can use in your citation. You're not going to have any problems finding anything like the title, the date of access, the medium, publication name, anything like that. So in this case, you can see this particular article, The Communication Troubles of Generation Text, is written by Lisa Stevens. Oh, small error there, that should have an S on it. Stevens Lisa, in this case. Everything always starts last name first, and then first name next. Title of the article, The Communication Troubles of Generation Text. The publication name in italics, the Globe and Mail. The publisher in this case is also the Globe and Mail. Publication date. You can see there's a couple of dates actually. There's original publication date in November 2010, and then there's a version it's been updated. It says last updated Thursday, August the 23rd. So my advice would be to use that. You're accessing the most recent version. That's the version that you've read. So that's going to be the date that you're going to include on the publication date. Medium again here is web, and date of access. That would be whenever you happen to look at your article online. Here I've just used the 15th of April 2013 as an example. Okay, so the most straightforward version of a television Works Cited entry is when you've actually watched a television show through the TV as opposed to online. And in this case, the MLA handbook is pretty clear about it. And this is the kind of layout that they suggest. You've got the title of the episode or the segment. In this case, I've got an example of a documentary, a Dog Zone documentary called Syria Behind Rebel Lines. So the title of the episode is Syria Behind Rebel Lines. and then the title of the program or series in this case is Doc Zone. It's a CBC, the name of the network is the CBC. Call letters and city of the local station. I just looked this up online, so there you go, that's the call letters of the local station. The city is Toronto. And then the broadcast date in this case, when it was actually shown on television, was the 14th of February 2013. And the medium of reception was television. Now, as with most CBC shows or episodes of series, they're often accessible through the cbc.ca site, through CBC Player. And this is based on the advice given in the MLA handbook. This is what I'm going to suggest as an option for an episode of a TV show, for a documentary, for anything like that that you've accessed through CBC Player. So in this case we've still got the episode or segment. It's called Syria Behind Rebel Lines. The original broadcast date was the 14th of February 2013. Where you're actually accessing it from, the CBC Player. I would tend to use CBC Player. It's a little bit more precise than cbc.ca, which ultimately is the broader site. CBC Player takes you to the precise website. In this case, the medium of publication, as it were, is the web. And again, an example date of when you might access it. The information this doesn't contain that the previous one does, in addition to the name of the call letters, for the local station, is the title of the program or series, Doc Zone. However, in testing this, you can go to the CBC Player website. In the search box, you can type in Syria Behind Rebel Lines, and it does come up. So what that shows me is that there is enough information within the citation for your reader to access the original source should they wish to. And really, ultimately, that is the most important thing. Okay. So hopefully this will help you just remember what it was that we did in class. Will help you pick up on any information that you may have missed when I was actually doing this live. And again, just to sort of reiterate these final thoughts, it makes such a difference. And I have to say, as someone who has marked university level papers, it makes such a difference if papers that come to you look polished. And if they look like the author, the writer, has taken time to format them correctly, it shows a real attention to detail. And it is often an indicator to your instructor that you've put the same amount of thought and care into your research and into your writing. So it's not a difficult thing. Once you get to grips with, and hopefully having the MLA exemplar is a huge step ahead. In the class I handed you out, again, a sort of double-sided handout that had the first, sort of what the first page might look like, and also Works Cited. So there you have a real kind of reference that you can look back to anytime you're producing a paper that's supposed to adhere to MLA style, and hopefully that will really help you. We've looked at Intext Citations, and we've looked at the fuller Works Cited entries. There's a lot more to documenting sources than we've been able to cover here, clearly. There's many different types of sources, but there's so many resources that you can access to help you find out how you might structure your in-text citation, how you might structure your Works Cited entry in those particularly unique cases. So you've got the handbook itself. You can get yourself a copy off Amazon or anywhere like that. You can access it in the library. We have a copy here in the Student Learning Centre, which you're more than welcome to come and reference anytime you need to. You've got your TA or instructor. You're dealing with a particularly gnarly source. You have not certain how you might structure it in your Works Cited page. Talk to your TA or instructor. They're the person that's going to be marking your paper. They may well have a suggestion for the way that they would prefer you to include it in your Works Cited page. The library. Library staff are great. They also have a bunch of handouts where they have a sort of more concise version of the latest version of the MLA handbook, you know, any other style as well that you might be using for any of your courses at UOIT, and of course there's me. You can always come and ask me and I can help you. I definitely won't always know off the top of my head, apart from the main types of sources that we've gone over here. There are many different variations, but between two brains and a handbook, I'm sure we can figure it out. So you're more than welcome to come and see me with any questions you might have to do with MLA citations.